Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to Black Cat Forge. We've got a really fun project to make today. Before we get into what we're making, please, if you have not, go ahead and hit like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell just to let you know when we drop new videos. We try to drop one at least once a week, sometimes maybe even two a week. But it also helps me know that you're liking what I'm making. It keeps me motivated to keep making content for you. So it's appreciated all the way around. So what are we making today? What we're going to make is we're going to make a flux spoon. Okay, some of you are going, what in the world is a flux spoon? Or maybe some of you are saying, what is flux? Good questions. We will get to that. When we get to forge welding, the main goal to get a successful forge weld is to have your steel as clean as possible. That means going over it with a wire brush, but also once you get your steel together and you're getting it hot enough to forge weld, you can take flux. And all flux is, and all that I'm using, is borax. Go to Walmart, buy you 20 mule team borax. That is flux. You sprinkle the flux over your weld while it's getting hot. The flux seeps into the cracks. It removes all the scale, all the rust. It gets it as clean as possible. That way, when you forge weld, you have a clean surface to a clean surface, and the chances of your weld taking and holding are that much better. So, what you need is a flux spoon. A flux spoon is just, you can take any size rod. I'm doing 5/16 today. And we're going to swedge it into a spoon shape. And we're going to lengthen it out because you don't want your hand right over that steel when it's that hot. You want a little bit of distance that you can just pour your little bit of flux into the weld. You don't want to go crazy with the flux. We'll cover that when we do get to forge welding. But what we're going to do today is we're making the spoon. Some of the steps we're going to take is, I'm using 5/16 rod, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take about a couple of inches and we're going to upset this steel just about 3/8. That's our first step, is we're going to upset some steel. That means getting it hot, driving itself into itself so it swells out. We're going to make our steel a little bit larger. After we do that, we're going to take what we've upset and we're going to isolate it. And then we're going to start working the upset part with the hammer, and we're going to get it into a round shape. Once we get it into a round shape, we're ready to make the spoon. Now, there's several different ways we can make the spoon shape. And I'm going to discuss them, and we're going to probably use a combination of both ways. The traditional way is the way a blacksmith in the 1800s, early 1900s would do, is they would have a tree stump in their shop. I'm just going to use a piece of scrap wood. They would put the metal on the wood and they would start hammering it with a ball peen hammer. And as they hammered it, it's going to start making a dish shape, and that will start forming the spoon. That is the traditional way, and we will try that today, okay? Just a little warning, it does produce a lot of flame and smoke. If you have a smoke detector in your shop, you may want to disconnect it for while you're doing that, but just remember to please connect it back when you're finished. The other way of doing it is using a swedge block. And I'm going to pick up my Holland Anvil swedge block. And as you see, it's already got the divots already pre-made in those, and you just lay your work in there and you work it with a ball peen hammer. So we'll probably use this a little bit as well. What we're going to do is we're going to use a little combination of some traditional blacksmithing and probably some modern blacksmithing to make our flux spoon. So let's get the steel hot, and join me in just a second at the anvil.
Okay, so we're going to bring our steel back. We're going to set it straight down and we're just going to hammer it. And if you watch it, you can see the bottom part of it beginning to swell out. That's the whole key to upsetting it. Then once you're done, if you don't drop your steel like I just did, we want to straighten it back out before we upset it again. It just makes our job easier. Okay, so this is the second time that we're upsetting our steel. You can see it's growing out. I'm really happy with how it's working. Just remember that as you do heat your steel for upsetting, you don't heat a large section. You only want to heat what you're upsetting. It just makes your job easier. Then just remember when you're done, just straighten it right back out before you put it back in the heat. Okay, so this is the last round of upsetting. We've got our inch and it's out to 3/8. So we just want to straighten it up a little bit. And now what we're going to do is I just want to talk about our next steps is we're going to take that upset portion, we're going to hang it over the side of the anvil, and then we're going to start reducing around it. We're just going to isolate it. We're just going to start squaring up what is right behind it. And then once we do that, then we're going to round it, and then we'll be working on making the spoon shape. But now we just want to start working on the isolating of our steel. So right now all we're doing is we are isolating that segment we upset. All we're doing is we're just squaring up behind it. We're just going to reduce that down. That's going to be the base of our spoon. After we get it where we want it, we'll do a half on, half off blow just to put a shoulder on one side of our upset steel, and then we'll round, and that's where we'll be. It's got one more heating here to do to get that all set where we want it. So we'll be back after we finish that and we start the rounding. All right, so right now we're just rounding out the steel that we squared to isolate that piece of steel. Nothing new that we haven't talked about before. Just, starting the diamonds, turning in the octagon, and then just bringing it round and round till it is round in appearance. If you notice the piece that we've isolated, we did put a shoulder on it just by doing a half on, half off blow. That will be the side that will be facing up when we start spreading the steel out. You're going to tell here in a moment, I'm going to measure the steel. It's right at 1.25 inches, which is really good. You could even go a little smaller if you wanted to. You'll see why here in just a moment as we start spreading this steel out. But our goal is when we spread this steel out, first of all, we don't want to make the steel as flat as it can be just yet. We want to try to get it into a roundish shape. And we'll be doing that hammer work. And eventually we'll move to the horn to finish out our rounding. But now we're just going to put it back in the fire and we'll be ready to start spreading our steel. All right, so we brought the steel back out. We're putting that shouldered edge on top. And all I'm doing right now is I am just getting the initial drawing out done. I'm not going for any super width or anything. I'm just getting the flat created. And that's all I'm doing. And then as I run out of heat, I'm going to stop and then I'm going to go put it back in the forge. Okay, so now I've got it back out. Now I'm actually working the edges to bring them out. So as I work both sides, I'm just doing my drawing out. And it's really fun to watch because you can watch that steel move right under your hammer as you do that. So right now as I'm looking at it, that one side has a really good draw out, the other side doesn't. So my next heat, that's where I'm going to focus my work on. All right, so all we're doing right now is I'm just working to draw this other side out to get it as similar as I can. One thing just to remember as we do work our steel, that neck that we have is very thin, and we have to be very careful hammering around it. When we lose our color, please stop because it'd be just like bending a paper clip. Eventually it's going to break. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start upsetting our steel again because we're going to start driving these corners back in. That's going to help get the roundish shape in. And it's going to give us a little bit more steel to work with on this. So that's our next step as we get it heated up again. Okay, so like I said, right now all we're doing is we're just working those edges back into themselves. Again, being mindful of the color of our steel right there at that neck. We're going to do this for a few times just to help get some more steel in there, and then we'll keep working on getting it rounded. Okay, so now that we got it into the rounded shape, I'm moving it to the horn of the anvil. And the reason I do that is the horn is a great way to move steel. If you notice, I'm holding it straight with the horn and I'm working it down. That just lets the horn draw that metal out. So we're getting it wider, getting it more into a spoonish shape. I mean, you can see right now it really looks a spoon shape. A little bit more, I'm just kind of straightening up some steel. I'm going to bring it over here closer to the anvil in just a moment. You can see what will look like, because right after we do this, we will be bringing up our wood block and we'll start getting our basic spoon shape done in our wood swedge. So there you can see it right there. That looks really good. I'm happy with that. There's a little bit of cleanup on that shoulder we'll get to later. But right now we're going to get that hot and get it ready for the wood block and our ball peen hammer. Okay, so I'm bringing my hot steel down onto my wood and I'm using the ball peen hammer. Just ignoring the fire and the smoke. I'm just hammering it down. And if you notice, the wood is actually forming into a spoon shape as I hammer it. It's also getting this basic shape in to my steel. I'm going to show it to you here in just a second. You're going to see that we're beginning to get a spoon shape. The next step is I'm going to heat it back up and I'm going to start working the sides and getting my sides of my spoon built up on this as well. Then we'll go back to the heat and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're bringing this back down and we're working the sides into our swedge. And it's about this point right here, I did make a rather corny joke that if somebody asked you what you watched, you could tell them you watched 4Ging in fire. If you thought that was funny, just comment LOL. Appreciate just seeing if you've stayed with me this far. Anyway, all I'm doing is I'm working my edges in, just keeping it going. We're going to stop here in a moment and get it hot again. Okay, so I'm using a different wooden swedge. It's a little deeper, and all I'm trying to do is just get the spoon shape in there. I know it looks a little rough at this point. They always do. It's not something to get discouraged about. We're going to move to the swedge block here next and finish getting the form. But for what we've got right there with the wood is great. So we'll be back in just a moment and we'll be at the swedge block. So I'm at the swedge block, and what you do at the swedge block is you start with a bigger hole than what you're going to use, bigger divot. And all you do is you start getting your metal shaped out, getting it rounded, letting the ball of the ball peen do the work for you and getting your steel into the shape you want. After we go here, we'll move to a smaller divot, and then we'll go to one more smaller divot just to get our spoon shaped. But right there you can see it looks really good. I'm happy with what we have. We're going to finish it out right here. We're going to get it back in the forge and get it hot, and we'll be right back. All right, so what we're doing now is I've moved it over to a smaller divot, and I'm working it. And yes, I know the steel is getting bigger. We were going to do some trimming here in a little bit. But as I'm working it, I'm just getting it more and more into a spoon shape. You don't want your flex spoon to be huge. You don't need a lot of flex when you're forge welding. So the next thing I want to do is I want to move to that center depression, and that's going to be the final shape of my spoon. I'm going to set it in there and start driving it in just a moment, and that will get the final shape of my spoon. We'll probably do another heat on there and get our forming done. Yeah, that one was way too shallow. So I'm going to move it over here to that deeper depression. And I'm just going to just start working that in there. There you go. Now you can see it's really starting to shape my spoon nicely. And I'm happy with what I see. So we're back. We're just, again, getting the shape in there. I know it looks horrible at this point, but this is the point that you realize you're just getting your spoon shape created. We do have a bunch of excess steel that's got to go. Once that steel is removed, you're going to see a really nice looking spoon. All I'm doing right now is just making sure that it looks good on the spoon side of the depression. All that extra steel, I'm going to walk over to the belt sander and get rid of, and I'll be right back in a moment, and you can see what we really have for a spoon. All right, so I'm back from the belt sander. As you can see, now that we got rid of all that excess on the front, it looks more like a spoon. I'm just cleaning up a couple little areas here, just getting it back into shape at a low spot there. I'm going to heat this up one more time, and I'm going to move it back into the larger depression just to get a spoon, just to get it more rounded. At this point right there, the spoon is done. I'm really happy with how that looks. So we're going to move back to the anvil and start working on the handle. Okay, so all we're doing right now is we're just cleaning up the handle. We're just finishing and making sure everything looks good and round. It's all nice and even. We just wanted to finish this little part up here next to the spoon. The next part we're going to work on is the back. We're going to do the standard squaring, drawing it out to a taper, rounding it, and then we're going to make a hook eye so we can hang the spoon. So that'll be our next step over here. And so working on the back end, as always, we're just going to square it up. Then we're going to draw it out to our taper. And once we draw it out to our taper, then we will start the rounding on the next heating. As always, bring your tapering to the edge of the anvil, just so your hammer can reach all the way down as you draw out your taper. This is nothing new. If you followed along with all our other previous videos, we've talked about this skill a whole bunch. So again, it's just practice, practice, practice what you've learned before. Okay, so nothing new here. We're now just starting to round it, going on the diamonds, octagon, and we're just turning it around till it's nice and round and drawn out. When we start the loop, we want to make sure the loop is in the same plane as the spoon. That way, when we hang it on a nail, the spoon lays flat against the wall. That's about the only other comment I have for this port here. We'll start making the loop here in the next heat. All right, so we're just going to start brushing this over to start our loop. And then we're going to turn it back 180 and we're going to start driving it in. Once we do this, we're going to have to offset our hook a little bit. And that'll just be heating it up again in the forge, quenching the finial part, and hammering it over. But I do make a mistake, and you will catch what I do. But it's good for learning that I leave it in. So we're going to go back, get this hot, and quench the finial, and then start drawing it back over, and you'll see where I messed up. All right, so here's where I made my mistake. I didn't quench enough of my finial, so as I'm bending it over, I'm actually squishing it, so I don't have an eye anymore for the nail. So all I'm going to have to do is get my needle nose pliers after I heat it back up, straighten it out, and then just re-bend it. So we'll show you how to fix it here in just the next step. All right, so here I am fixing my mistake. I just unbent it. Now I'm just bringing it back down with my needle nose pliers. So right there, we're pretty much done. I've got a little bit of cleanup work I'm going to do off camera. And then we're going to come back for our final comments on this spoon. Again, I apologize for the voiceover. I feel really stupid for not checking my microphone, but I guess if that is the worst thing I do today, I'm doing pretty good. So I'll be right back with you for final comments.
All right, so we're done. We got our Flux spoon built. I hope you enjoyed the process. It was a fun build. It was a quick build. This is not a tool you're going to use every day in your forge, but it is a tool you will use from time to time when you do forge welding. When we get to the forge welding video, you will need to hold on to this and use it. So, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already yet, please click like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell. It just helps keep me motivated. It lets me know that you liked what you saw. Again, I apologize for having the mic off by accident. It was just one of those days, one of those things that happen, but the voiceover did work. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for another new video coming soon. Until then, blacksmith safe, and I'll see you later.